And we are live for episode number 29 of Lowering the Barrier.
Wow.
If you just heard that, wow, that wasn't me. That was Maddie. She is, in fact, joining us. The last few episodes we've had guests. I think the last 3 straight we've had guests.
Yeah.
And that's been a lot of fun, and we're going to continue on with the guests. But I was like, oh man, 4 guests in a row? Is that too crazy? I actually do have 2 more guests planned where we're going to be recording in the next week, and then we have and then I have a third that's like a third and a fourth that's potential. So anyway, you guys didn't need to know that, but just to say more guests are coming. It reduces just transparently, it reduces my workload, because having an expert on a topic, I can just ask questions that kind of like lay up,
Sure.
the expert in that field, rather than having me need to like, I have a pretty decent understanding of most of the things that my guests are going to, say, but I feel the need to just like dig into research constantly.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
the podcast
takes a lot of prep work. Not that it's not prep work when it's a guest. Like you still like.
Oh, it's hours and hours and hours and hours and hours of prep work, but it's different. It's kind of more enjoyable. It's like I get to have an interview, and that can be fun. I can talk. I can look like if you guys listen to the previous podcast, like I do, you can tell that I've done my research on the person.
Sure. Yeah.
And that's just different than reading studies. I get to read like news articles about the person, or I get to look at their social media or their website, and I get to find out who the person is. Anyway, that is not the purpose of today. I just wanted to give all the listeners a heads up that more podcast guests are coming. And if there are any that you want me to have on, maybe just shoot me a DM or an email, and don't be like, don't ask me to have on like Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson.
Great example.
Kevin Hart.
Yeah.
And those are both like actors / comedians, but like Neil deGrasse Tyson, Bill Nye. Like we are on the 29th episode. This isn't like the 290th of a very successful podcast. This is the 29th podcast episode of, we're doing good.
Yeah.
Right now we're getting about 1,000 viewers per episode, which I think is sensational. It's incredible, and I'm very, very grateful for. But I think I'd have to pay a pretty sizable fee to have somebody like, like them on, like the Pope. The Pope isn't going to come on my podcast, as far as I know.
I don't know if he does podcasts. So.
Well, this could be the first one.
That's true.
But if you guys do have any guests in mind that are like, I can reach a little bit, I can reach above where I'm at a little bit, but stay within punching distance, right? Okay. Today's episode is a Q&A episode. So every week I do a weekly Q&A on my Instagram, and normally with those, I just like spend an hour doing cardio and I just knock them out straight. However, that is very spammy, and my Instagram reach was tanking, and at the end of the day, this is a business, and I need to do what's best for my business. And if my reach tanks and it takes days for it to recover, and I'm doing that every single week, I am hurting my reach to people. I am hurting, my social media is largely how I get customers. Like word of mouth and social media are the 2 big ones. So I need to, I don't care about necessarily optimization, but I do care about like not being dumb. And I'm being dumb if I continue to do that over and over and over again. Plus, I did a poll. Plus, it's not just selfish. I did a poll. I asked, and my audience overwhelmingly voted for don't spam them all in one day. So that made the decision even easier to not do that anymore.
You're very in-depth with your answers. So it's like a lot to read. I read every one of them.
Yeah. I did have a few people that said the Q&As are my favorite day of the week, and different iterations of that. But that one was basically verbatim, which was very, very, very kind. I thanked that person for saying that. But anyway, so the Q&A, I'm going to still open up the Q&A on Tuesday like I normally do. You can ask questions there. It's anonymous, and then it's just on my story every Tuesday. And then I will answer some of them on my Instagram story across a week, just like 1 or 2 per day. And then some of them, if I feel like I need to go into nuance, go into depth, or I want to go into depth, I'm going to bring them on the podcast here. So yeah, that's how we're doing it. today's questions, I'm just going to read them out so that you guys have an understanding of, and there will be timestamps below for all these. But very generally, it's will Pilates grow muscle? How to improve imbalance as you age, or I'm sorry, how to improve balance as you age. Excess skin from losing 50 pounds. Let's see here. I have to scroll through, and like, how do I even? I don't know. Go look at the timestamps. The timestamps will.
That'd be better.
That'll be easier than me having to scroll through and waste your time. If you're curious about what questions I answered, go look in the timestamps. Okay. What are we watching lately?
Severance.
Severance season 2 has
And
been crazy.
Taskmasters.
Has been crazy.
Yes.
Yeah. We're recording this on the 15th of February. So yesterday was Valentine's Day.
Mhm.
I recently made yesterday for Valentine's Day, I made you 2 recipes.
Yes.
Pancakes and chocolate chip cookies, which I would say are 2 of your favorite foods.
Yes.
Not like number 1 and number 2 by any means.
I mean, they're up there.
But I'd say like top 15.
Yeah, probably.
Chocolate chip cookies might be even top 5.
That is a staple classic dessert.
Yeah.
We do not need to get crazy. We don't need to make cakes. We don't need to make, I don't even know what other desserts there are.
Cheesecake. Well,
Yeah.
You do like my cheesecake though.
Cheesecake is great. But chocolate chip cookies are just classic.
I'm not much of a baker or a chef or anything like that. Maddie does the majority of our cooking, and that is a godsend because if I did it, I'd learn.
You would.
I would learn. But
I mean, you did great yesterday.
Yeah.
And they turned out amazing.
Yeah. So the pancakes and the chocolate chip cookies, the recipes were from Epicurious. What would you give them 1 out of 10? And don't be nice. Like, be objective for our audience.
Okay. The chocolate chip cookies, 10.
10.
Those were
easy 10. Those were insane. Those were the best chocolate chip cookies I've ever
Those
had.
were wonderful.
Those were insane. Yeah. Go to YouTube, Epicurious chocolate chip cookie. It's like best chocolate chip cookie or something like that. Of course, they're gonna name it that. They wouldn't name it like third best or just good chocolate chip cookie. They're gonna name it the best, and it was the best.
They are the
incredible.
best. They
were
earned that title.
They were thick.
Yeah.
They had a. What I found very interesting is they did have that crispy bottom, but then really gooey center, and it's like you could see the color difference in it. That was great.
Delicious pancakes. I thought they were amazing. I thought they were great, and I think they were better than our standard like box mix pancakes.
Sure,
they are time intensive.
I was telling her that the work to enjoyment ratio was off for me. Yeah. It was a lot of work, and they were just like good. They were good.
I would still give them an 8. I thought they were great.
An 8 or an 8.5?
Yes.
Assuming like I go to a restaurant, I get those pancakes.
Oh, I'm delighted.
I'm shocked. I'm like, these are the best pancakes I've ever had.
Yeah.
But like when you have to do the work, it's like, dang, that's a lot of dishes.
Yeah.
For some pancakes,
They were great.
They were very thick. They were probably about 2 times the thickness and fluffiness.
The thing I will say, they make a huge batch and they freeze well.
That's true. And like, they reheat well. We reheated them today.
Yeah. And normal pancakes, you can't really do that so well. So.
And we're watching Severance, and I'm watching Invincible season 3. And other than that, watching Taskmaster as always.
Yep.
Anything else new that we're doing?
We go on vacation next week.
Yeah, we go on vacation next week. Yep.
That's about it.
Yep. All right. Let's get into today's episode. So, first, the question. I'm going to read the question.
I can read the question.
Oh, that'd be great. Yeah,
that'll get me chatting a little bit more because I don't always have a lot of input.
Yeah.
Pilates seems like all the rage right now from people who are used to be huge into the gym, at least in my circle. Curious if it's enough to grow/maintain muscle.
Yeah, Pilates is all the rage right now. Mm-hmm. And I think there's some misconceptions that Pilates, partially because people are either misinformed or they're intent. I have to give people the benefit of the doubt and assume that they are not intentionally deceiving their audience or, whatever, when they are saying things like Pilates will lead to long, lean muscle. But that doesn't, that's not how that works. All muscle is like relatively lean as is, in terms of like the actual muscle tissue. And when we think about muscle, it either grows or it shrinks. Those are the 2 things that muscle does. Now we can kind of get into the weeds on like, so a sarcomere is a unit of contractile tissue that's like, think of like chain links inside. Think of a muscle fiber being a chain link. Okay. one of those links would be what we call sarcomere, right? So it's like one unit of that contractile tissue. Technically, we can do something called adding sarcomeres in series, which is where we add one more one more link to that. You know what I'm trying to say? One more like hoop or whatever the fuck
Yeah.
to that chain link. So technically, we can do that. Eric Helms, who is a researcher in the field, recently did a self study, like a case study on himself, where he um, basically did this like medieval torture device. I think I was telling you about this. Yeah,
Yeah.
when Bennett
Yeah.
was here, I was telling you about this. I was telling Bennett about this too. And he would like if you grab your hands or if you take your hands and you pull your toes back toward your knee basically, and you get a really big stretch on the calves. He had a boot that like did that for him, and every whatever, I don't remember the exact study protocol, maybe it was like 30 minutes a day, hour a day, I'm not sure, but he had to crank it and leave it cranked so it was like this in super 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 intense stretch on his calves. And I mean, it's intense pain. So anyways, there was like this idea that we could grow muscle from very very high intensity stretching, but the intensity is not only is it a very high intensity, like 8, 9 out of 10 on pain, like similar to breaking a bone. It is also, you need to do it for a very long time, for like 30, 45, 60 minutes potentially, to see probably what you'd see with similar growth with just doing 1, 2 sets of calf raises.
Yeah.
So it's like it could somebody technically. Anyways, we're kind of getting the weeds on the Pilates thing right now with like stretching, but this is just to say that like when I say that like Pilates won't grow long or lean muscle, technically we can like increase the length of our muscle on a contractile, frame of mind, but um, yeah, no. Anyway, muscle like generally speaking, it either grows or it shrinks, and so Pilates isn't going to do something that is inherently different than just taking a set close to failure with lifting weights. Stimulates muscle hypertrophy and the muscle grows. So Pilates, what is it good for? Yeah, can it improve your strength? Potentially. Can it improve your mobility? Yeah, potentially. And your endurance? Definitely. Like if you're holding a certain position for 60 seconds, guess what? You're going to be better at holding that position for 60 seconds. Like the law of specificity plays in here. If you do something, if you do something consistently, you're going to get better at that thing. However, lifting weights, it's just going to be much more efficient for maintaining and growing muscle. And there are some studies that suggest that Pilates can maintain muscle in beginners or older adults. But for like really muscle growth, eventually you're going to need heavier resistance. It's a form of exercise. So in that case, it is going to be beneficial. But if I take somebody who has never lifted weights before and they're generally pretty sedentary, and I have them just start walking every day, they're going to grow muscle from that. And then if I have them do like one set of push-ups per week, they're going to grow muscle from that. If I have them but eventually, push-ups are still kind of hard, but like let's use a different example of 5-pound dumbbell bench press, right? They're going to grow muscle from that, but eventually 5-pound dumbbell bench press will be too easy for them, and they need 10 pounds or 15 pounds or 20 pounds or so on and so forth. And so that's the same thing with Pilates, is like, are you consistently challenging yourself, or are you doing these like the similar stretches, the similar weights, like 5, 8, 10-pound weights? This isn't me shitting on Pilates or anything, and it's definitely not me saying Pilates isn't hard. It is. And if somebody who's never done Pilates, like let's say you have a friend who's like, hey, come do Pilates with me. And, let's say it's like a girl and a guy, and the girl is, not to fall into like typical gender roles or anything like that. We could swap it, but let's just continue on. Let's say like the girl's like, hey, come do Pilates with me. And the guy's like a meathead, and he's like lifting weights, a bunch, and he's jacked. And he's like, okay, yeah, sure, I'll do Pilates. How hard can it be? He's going to be absolutely torched from that Pilates class. He will be very sore, but that doesn't mean that Pilates is harder than his workouts. It's because of novelty. When we think about delayed onset muscle soreness, that is, we don't have the muscle protective effects against something that we haven't done before. We gain that protection called the repeated bout effect from repeated bouts of similar exercise. And so if you've ever gone to Pilates the first time, or if you've lifted weights the first time, or if you haven't played soccer in a long time, you haven't gone swimming in a long time, and then you go full force on it.
Right.
I mean, the time I played soccer after not playing for a few years, I was wrecked.
Yeah.
And like, dude, I can deadlift 500 pounds. I can
right.
I lift and I move and I cycle. But when you do something new and you do it at a high intensity for the first time, yeah, it's going to be really, really freaking hard. So I don't know. Did I cover Pilates? Like,
I think so.
Is it enough to grow? Point blank, is Pilates enough to grow or maintain muscle? At the early stage of, like, if you've never lifted weights before, if you've been generally sedentary, yeah, you will grow some muscle. Will it be as efficient or as fast as it would if you were just lifting weights with a structured weightlifting program? No. And will there be diminishing returns in terms of like, and probably a ceiling to how much muscle you can grow from just doing Pilates? Yeah, unless you are intentionally applying progressive overload by increasing the resistance, increasing the repetitions, increasing the range of motion potentially. But yeah, it's not going to be as efficient. Okay. What did I miss?
I mean, I think you definitely covered the question, but I also think that like we also know that physical activity is good for us. So if it's a question of like I either go to Pilates or I'm sedentary and I'm not exercising at all, go to Pilates.
Go to Pilates. Yeah, easy choice.
It's just also like maybe eventually you go to Pilates and add in like 1 twice a week workout, like strength training workout. That would be great.
Yeah.
But I also think that like we don't need all physical activity to necessarily be intentional muscle growth.
Yep.
If we enjoy something, we can still do that.
Yeah, all exercise is good exercise. I'm glad you added that in. It's not that serious. If you don't want to like lift weights 5 days a week, you don't have to.
Yeah.
But do it one time a week, twice per week for 15 minutes. Do a push, a pull, a squat, and a hinge. And if you don't know what I'm talking about right now, just hire me or something, or like jump in one of my group programs. They're really cheap. Just do that. Yeah. Speaking of group programs, next question. Go ahead.
I am a Forward Forever member. I slowly lost 50 pounds in 20 inches. I am noticing a little extra skin in arms, inner thighs, etc. Anything I can add to firm up or prevent sagging skin? Thanks in advance.
So first, congratulations. 50 pounds
amazing.
And so 50 pounds is incredible. 20 inches, I'm always curious. So some people like add up all the inches they've lost, but I don't know what inches like across multiple measurement sites. Is this 20 inches off your waist? Is this 20 inches off like your neck, your arms, your forearms, your calves, your thighs, your waist, your glutes? Like it doesn't really matter. I'm just like curious. Like I'm not,
But that's amazing.
That's incredible. Yeah. 50 pounds is like, damn right you lost 20 inches. So yeah, noticing a little extra skin in arms, inner thighs, etc. And what can you do to prevent or firm up sagging skin? So skin elasticity depends on your genetics, your age, and your speed of weight loss. If you lose weight faster, you're not going to have that skin. You're not going to have the time for the skin to try to like slowly kind of like, come back, I suppose. And lifting weights will improve your muscle size, which it won't tighten the skin directly, but like, let's say we put this weird example, but I'm going to try. Let's say we have a balloon and we paint the balloon black, right? Okay. And it's a red balloon. Okay. And then we let it dry. Then we blow up the balloon. And when we blow up the balloon, we're going to kind of see that those like cracks in that paint, we're going to start seeing that red balloon kind of pop through. And what I'm trying to say here is that black paint is almost like your skin, and the balloon is like your muscle. So not the best, because we're seeing like, what is my muscle going to be peering through my skin? But what I'm trying to say here is like, if you have bigger muscle, yeah, your skin has more room to kind of stretch out over that. So you might be able to fill out a little bit. Now that said, losing 50 pounds is a significant amount of weight. Losing 100 pounds, significant amount of weight. With these situations, is it super likely that you're going to have abs that are so freakishly large that like your skin now has, room to settle over that? Probably not, realistically. Like it'll go a little bit of it'll go a little way when you are increasing the size of your arms and just like shoulders and back and just things like that in terms of the muscle. But no, unfortunately, there's not much you can do about loose skin outside of surgical options like a skin removal. I have somebody that is probably going to hop on the podcast who did lose, I think she lost 135 or 150 pounds, and she went the surgical skin removal route. So if she's comfortable talking about that when we hop on a podcast together, I am curious to hear about that. But yeah, so that one's pretty brief. Let's move on to the next one.
How to help with balance. I can't stand on one leg to tie my shoes, which was never an issue. Getting older and it scares me, frankly.
Okay, so this is one I went in the weeds on, guys. This is one I really went in the weeds on because I have a gripe with people who are like, do Bosu ball squats. Because so frequently I am like, we don't need to, if we want to get stronger, specifically, if we want to get bigger muscle and we want to get stronger, we don't want things to be off balance. We don't want to have to be juggling two balls while doing a bicep curl and, closing both of our eyes and leaning backward. Like we want it to be stable. We want it to be, and so I frequently hear people like, oh, but that's not functional, and that's a whole rabbit hole that I could go down, right? That's a whole rabbit hole that I could go down. But, what is functional is being strong, if you are strong enough to be able to, if you fall and you can catch yourself because you're strong enough to be able to catch yourself, that is very functional on a day-to-day basis. A deadlift, are you going to be deadlifting a barbell? No, not really. But are you going to be picking up a child or your groceries or suitcase off the ground? Yeah, those are things that you do in everyday life. Are you going to be squatting with dumbbells in your hand? No. But are you going to be squatting to get up off the couch or up off the toilet when you're 80, 90 years old? I'd hope so. I hope you have the strength to be able to do that. So anyway, let's get into this because this is a lengthy section. And it's very interesting in my opinion. So balance declines with age due to muscle loss, decreased proprioception, and less nervous system efficiency. And according to a 2008 review, 1 in 3 people over the age of 65 years who are living in the community experience at least one fall each year, and 10 to 15% of these falls are associated with serious injury. That's not good. Mm-mm. Because mortality rates in previous studies for patients with hip fractures are very high, ranging from 15 to 36%. So when we're talking about 1 in 3 people over the age of 65 are falling at least once per year, 10 to 15% of those falls are associated with serious injury, and 15 to 36% of, now it's a hip fracture specifically, but I mean, how often do we hear that, like, old person, old man or woman fell, they broke their hip, and then dude, within a year, the mortality rates just aren't good. Yeah. So you don't want that to happen to you, your loved one, your mom, your dad, your grandparents, like your friends. You don't want that to happen. So strength is something that you should be investing your time and effort in. Again, you don't need to be like me, who's lifting for 2 hours a day, 5 days a week. Right. I'm not doing that so much in the winter because it's freaking cold in the gym, but we have a garage gym.
Yeah, it's tough.
But anyway. So a systematic review by Cardor from 2013 titled, what did I write here? I don't even know what I wrote here. Okay, whatever. I'm just going to read this out because the next two, there are 4 main ways to train for improving your balance, and they came from these 2 studies, but also, that's where I'm going with this, but also these 2 studies, in case you're curious, are where I would go to kind of reference whether you're a nerd who likes reading research or you're just like kind of like, I don't know, you want to just save this for your mental bank. Systematic review by Cardor from 2013 titled Effects of Different Exercise Interventions on Risk of Falls, Gait Ability, and Balance in Physically Frail Older Adults. And a systematic review and meta-analysis by Youngwook and colleagues from 2022, which is titled Which Exercise Interventions Can Most Effectively Improve Reactive Balance in Older Adults? Okay, here are the 4 main ways to train for balance, in addition to just being strong. Because again, I want to really reinforce in your minds that if you just imagine yourself being 80, 90, 120 years old and you start to like kind of fall forward and there's like a handrail next to you, are you going to be strong enough to be able to grab that handrail and posture up? Now, you right now might be thinking like, of course I am.
Mm-hmm.
But when you've seen people who have gone downhill and you've seen them lose their strength, then it starts to get a little more real of like, damn, a
Mm-hmm.
lot of older people aren't strong enough to do that. And you can say like, oh, that won't be me, but what are you actively doing about it? I will say, if you're one of the 1,000 listeners to this podcast, you're probably doing shit. Like you're probably, I would assume that 90% of our audience, of our listeners, are at least somewhat semi-regularly strength training. I would assume.
Yeah.
These are health-seeking individuals. Otherwise, they're going to be listening to like, well, just not this podcast.
Probably.
Yeah,
I would
probably.
assume.
Anyway, so strength is one of the most important things. And then if you want to really train for this specifically, I would say this is probably better for, not better for older adults, but I would say it's probably more realistic and practical for older adults. And you'll see why very quickly. So first is perturbation-based training. And this is just like external disturbances. Have you seen that video where they have that, I think it's like is it MIT that has that robot that they like mess around with? Is it MIT or?
I'm not sure.
Anyway, it's that one. It's some college or university or some whatever, and they have a robot that they like push around,
Mm-hmm.
and the robot is like self-correcting and like balancing itself, and they like try to knock it off balance, and it like kind of wobbles, and then it like catches itself, and that's basically what this is these external disturbances. So these exercises involve unexpected pushes or pulls or surface changes that require a quick balance recovery response. So this could be something where it's like a trainer or a partner gently pushes or pulls in different directions. Yeah, don't go up to grandma and be like, "Grandma, we're training," and then just shove her from behind. Don't do that.
Yeah.
It might be something on the treadmill where it's like a sudden speed or incline change forces the person to adjust their gait, the way that they're walking. And it could be a balanced platform training. This one's a little more specific. You'd probably have to find this in like a physical therapy clinic, but it's where you're standing on a moving platform and that suddenly tilts or shifts directions. Now, the real life application here is simulate situations like getting bumped into a crowd or slipping on ice. So it's like, I mean, literally this morning as I was taking out trash, I was, as I threw the trash out and then I was walking back in, there was some ice. My left foot slipped forward, right foot immediately caught myself. And it's like, if I was 90 years old, that could have been pretty bad.
Yeah.
But yeah. Anyway, next. So that was number one. Number two is step recovery drills. So this is training the ability to take quick steps when balance is lost for fall prevention. So 3 ways you can train this. Unpredictable step responses. So a person, again, stands still and a trainer unexpectedly nudges them, requiring them to take a step in the direction of force. Another one could be that, I don't know if you guys are big into arcades, but if you are, there's like this arcade thing where there's a bunch of light up buttons in front of you and you try to like hit the ones that are lit up.
Mm-hmm.
I got a high score on that one. Do you remember?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
When was that? It doesn't matter.
I think we were in Denver. Was that when we got married?
I think so.
Anyway, so kind of like that, except for this targeted step training, it would be like on the floor. So kind of like Dance Dance Revolution. Also a great arcade game where you're stepping quickly onto randomly lit up targets. So if you played Dance Dance Revolution, you are so ahead of the curve. And then finally is like, this one's very reasonable to set up like basically anywhere, which is just obstacle course walking. And so it's like walking over, around, or stepping onto obstacles. And it could be like think about increasing the demand of this over time. Don't have granny or grandpa, papa, don't have them like trying to do 5-foot jumps, like standing jumps, like have them step over a spot on the ground, and
even think about like your uneven sidewalks or curbs, like
right. And so it's like you just increase the demand over time. Third is slip and trip simulation training, and this is going to sound very similar as the other two things because these are all kind of they're so similar, but hopefully it helps paint a picture. So we're going to keep going. So it's like slip training. So walking on a slippery surface, like a treadmill or some kind of surface with reduced friction, can force the person to adjust their balance or stance and recover balance. Trip recovery drills, obstacles like foam blocks or bands cause a trip, requiring a quick step to regain balance, and then quick direction changes. So sudden cues signal the person to stop, pivot, or sidestep quickly while walking. I have seen for some reason, I mean, I haven't even seen like a lot of videos of this, but I think everybody they've seen it happen, whether in real life or a video, where it is an old person who's walking forward, and then they kind of like, they start like falling forward and they can't catch themselves because they're already like in that forward movement. And so this quick direction change could help people, like be able to kind of get their feet in front of them to prevent that fall forward. Yeah, when my grandma was in the nursing home, or whatever, I just remember, and like even when my uncle Bill who wasn't actually my uncle, he was my dad's business partner, but we called him Uncle Bill. Just like, dude, these old people, they would just like fall on their faces, and it's so sad seeing like band-aids on their faces and stuff like that. It just sucks. And then finally, fourth, you're gonna be like, wow, this is the same shit as before. And yeah. So first is not first, but 4A is unpredictable stop and go walking. So, a trainer will randomly yell out walk or stop or turn. Next is walking while doing a mental task. So like counting backward, and you're kind of forcing the brain to multitask. And then finally is unstable surface walking. So walking on foam pads, uneven terrain, or sand. So, okay. Those are the things that you can do to, help you improve your balance. But as you can imagine, when you're 30, 40, 50, those kinds of things probably aren't as important. What you could be doing now, if you're in the position where you have horrible balance, okay, yeah, you do need to do that. You need to start from kind of ground zero.
Mm-hmm.
If you're already like semi-athletic and you don't have any worries about falling, then maybe it's some plyometrics, like broad jumps, like bunny hops, like sprints, doing some more athletic drills just to kind of like keep reinforcing that. Or if you're already, pretty comfortable with where you're at, then just like playing sports that you enjoy, like pickleball, like, whatever you want to do, but things that do require you to kind of pivot directions and stuff like that. Basketball, pickleball, soccer, whatever it is, just finding a sport that you enjoy, that does kind of have those demands kind of built in. The balance things that I'm mentioning earlier are more for the elderly,
Mm-hmm.
and I can look at the demographics, the amount of viewers that I have that are 80 plus, it's slim. It's not a major part of my audience
Sure.
right now.
But these
Maybe
could also be helpful for people with older parents. And
the thing is though here is that I wouldn't want most people. I'm going to be honest. I wouldn't feel comfortable with most people doing this with their parents.
reasonable.
It would be, I'd want them to get help with a like physical therapist that
Mm-hmm.
has the safety parameters to make sure that, dude, we're talking about slip training. like
Yeah.
I
You
don't
probably
want
don't want to
I don't
push
want you to
down your
walk up to your
relative.
parents and just like, you're your aunt or uncle or whatever, grandma or grandpa, and just like kind of like nudge them, see like, this is good for you, nudge them, like do it in an environment that is safe, and that person doesn't feel scared or
Mm-hmm.
anxious, because that's not good either. You want to develop confidence. But for this person who was asking, this person who asked was saying that, can't stand on one leg to tie my shoes, which was never an issue. Sometimes people say that's like the old man test, which is like, you have to, I don't know if you've heard this, the old man test.
No.
I think it's the dumbest shit on the planet.
Wait, stand on one leg.
You stand on one leg, and you put a sock on and you put a shoe on and tie your shoe while standing on one leg.
I'm going to be honest. I don't think I could tie my shoe on one leg.
I just think that's the dumbest, and it's like,
And I would consider myself to have pretty good balance. Like
I have
fine balance, I should
a
say.
very strong balance.
Yeah.
I've always had very strong balance because of soccer, but I just don't think that we should be like saying this is the old man test. And if you fail this, then like, because we're noceboing people into thinking that they're more frail or like more broken than they
Mhm.
really are. I just think it's bullshit. And I think the people who share that should be a little bit more wary about what they're actually sharing. Um, there's just people that I've seen that share that recently, I even. Anyway, yeah, so traditional balance exercises like static holds or stability ball work, things like that, they can be helpful, but they're not as effective as the reactive balance training for fall prevention. You know, the best training mimics the real world instability. So slips, trips, uneven terrain, the things that people are going to see on a normal daily basis. Those are going to be the best to improve rapid balance reactions. And older adults, I'm going to say older adults and athletes alike both benefit from step recovery drills, perturbation based exercises, and slip trip simulations to reduce fall risk. But the reality is, like, for most athletes, if I fell on the ground, I mean, how many times do I fall when I'm playing with the dogs? Like, I'll be like running around with them, and Leo will be right behind my knees. I fall backward, land on my ass, or like land on my back, and it's
Mhm.
like I just get up and keep playing, you
Sure.
know. And so it's, I would find a sport that you enjoy, you know, like pickleball, for example. Shout out Mike Dola. And I would just, you know, stick with that. And then if you feel that you do need to regress it a little bit, then yeah, maybe working with a person or a physical therapist or personal trainer who like really helps with elderly populations to do this kind of thing, then that could be advised. All right, that's enough for the balance. Let's move on to the next one.
Any benefit to cardio in cold weather or heat? I've heard some strong benefits in hotter temps, but I wasn't sure if it's just rumors.
So, for, assuming you didn't skip right to this question, if you did, it's fine. But kind of like we were talking about earlier with the law of specificity and something that I talk about frequently, the law of specificity is like when we want to get better at something, we have to do that thing. And so, um, if you want to get better at running in hot weather, then you should probably start trying to train up to that. So here's what I wrote for all this. So when you exercise in high temperatures, your body diverts blood flow to working muscles and the skin for cooling. This can reduce oxygen delivery to the muscle, causing earlier fatigue and impaired performance if you're not adapted to the heat. And I think we've all experienced this. On a hot day, it's just harder.
Yeah.
Like, it's just harder. And if you're dehydrated, the effects worsen. I mean, the effects of even mild dehydration on performance are very dramatic. I don't have the research on that in front of me, but um, if you're curious, literally just type in dehydration performance PubMed and you're going to find a whole lot on it. And you don't need to be very highly dehydrated. Slight dehydration has a massive detriment to your performance. So, heat acclimation could potentially improve your performance. Um, Short-term exposure to heat is mostly a challenge. It doesn't really increase it doesn't really improve your fitness, but it does increase your fatigue, like we just talked about. But if you gradually increase expose yourself to the heat over 1 to 2 weeks, called heat acclimation, your body can adapt by increasing plasma volume, lowering heart rate and core temperature during exercise, and enhancing endurance performance even in cooler temperatures. Now, a study by Lorenzo and colleagues from 2010 showed that heat acclimated athletes improve VO2 max and time trial performance in both hot and cool conditions. So, to answer it succinctly, I suppose, should you do cardio in the heat? If you're not heat acclimated, and you have no interest in doing it, you know, and being heat acclimated, then like probably doesn't really matter. Like, don't feel like you got to go set up your bike in the sauna. Like, it's fine. And if you're not heat acclimated, expect worse performance, higher fatigue, increased cardio strain, and just like make sure you're hydrating very well. If you are heat acclimated, then yeah, training in the heat maybe can enhance endurance and cardiovascular efficiency, potentially. And then if you are preparing for an event like a run and you are like currently in Michigan and you're going to go run in like Arizona or some shit like that, train up for it. Don't
Yeah.
train in Michigan and then in like cold weather and then go to Arizona, because that's going to hit you like a truck.
Mhm.
Now, in for the cold, because this person asked about cold as well, right? Yeah, training in cold weather. Okay, so cold. So this is some shit that Andrew Huberman and colleagues have talked about a lot is like, oh, if you do cold plunges and you run in the cold, that's so much better for you. They are taking a mechanism that is super, super common for that whole crowd. They are taking a mechanism and stretching it out so far. So, what can happen? If you are very cold, the cold can increase something called brown fat activation, but it's more of a plausible thing in the research rather than like realistic outcomes. A cold plunge might air quote activate brown fat, but adults don't have nearly as much as like babies, for example, of brown fat. So this might increase your energy expenditure by 10 to 20 calories. It's very insignificant. Do I want to get in a freezing fucking cold tub for 60 seconds, a minute, 2 minutes to burn 10 calories? No. I will walk 70 steps. That's just a number. That's just a number. Like, don't.
Yeah.
But like, actually, like, probably like 100, 200 steps. And we're talking that's probably going to be about 10 calories. Yeah. Of energy expenditure. Maybe not. I don't know. Anyway, I suppose I could do the math. It's probably about 200. Yeah. About 200 steps would be about 10 calories. So, very roughly. So, I don't know. You tell me. I don't want to freeze. And some people are, I know, before I make this disclaimer, if I didn't make this disclaimer that I'm about to make, I know I'd get messages. Well, I do it for the mental benefits. Good for you.
Yeah. If you enjoy it.
If you enjoy it, then do your
go
thing.
wild.
If you enjoy, do your thing. If that's your dopamine rush, that's fine. You know what my dopamine rush is? Hugging my wife. Seeing my baby smile. Playing with my dogs. That's my dopamine rush. But if you want to get into a freezing cold tub, you do you, man. You know what my dopamine rush is? A hot shower.
Love a hot shower.
And there's actually probably, and one more thing on the cold tub thing. It's like very bro-y right now to do cold tubs and stuff like that. But it blunts hypertrophy. I think I've talked about this on a previous podcast. I don't know. Probably. But it blunts hypertrophy if you do it acutely, like if you do it after a training session. So when you see like CrossFitters doing this, I'm going in the weeds. When you see CrossFitters doing this in like the CrossFit Games, for example, what they're doing, whether they know it or not, is they are reducing inflammation to get their bodies primed for the next event as quickly as possible, because they have to perform at a high level. They can't have this soreness,
and they don't have downtime. Between events,
and they don't give a shit about the muscle growth that they're getting from that one performance event, right? But if you are lifting, like at home, and you're like, oh, I want to grow muscle, not the worst thing, but one of the worst things you could do is get into a cold tub immediately. I'm thinking like, what's the worst thing you could do? If, not eat any calories, not eat any protein, not sleep, drink a bunch of alcohol. Like, that'd be the worst stuff. Yeah. That'd be really bad.
It'd be pretty tough.
A cold plunge would be bad too, but like, if you do all that and cold plunge, you're cooked. You're not growing muscle. Okay. Next question.
If you strength train 4 days per week, would doing low impact cardio, like a 30-minute stationary bike, zones 1 or 2, on the other days be okay? Is it important to have a day of total rest? Zone 1 or 2 doesn't incur much fatigue.
This is me. This
I understand.
Sorry, I wrote this part. Yeah. So the question is like, if you're lifting 4 days per week, would a 30-minute stationary bike in like zone 1 or 2 cardio on other days be okay? Or is it important to have a total day of rest? That's totally fine. So the thing about zone 1 or 2 is that it doesn't incur much fatigue, which is like one reason it's in the spotlight right now. All cardio is good cardio, but zone 2, we don't. Yeah, like I just said, we don't get that fatigue. So it's basically like limitless amounts. Now, this matters less for the people who, like me, do cardio once or twice per week. For me, it doesn't matter if I'm in zone 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. Like, there are some semantics around that. Like, yes, there are some trade-offs around different zones and things like that. But for the most part, I don't worry about it too much because I don't do enough cardio for it to matter. For people like Alyssa Olenek, who are, she ran 100 fucking miles.
Incredible. Sensational.
Superwoman. Literally superwoman. She, and go watch her documentary on it on YouTube. For people like that, then it matters a lot more because she needs to train so much. Her training volume is so high that she needs to keep those like closer to zone 2 for a large part of her work, which I'm sure I know she's talked about ad nauseum. to educate our audience on it. But yeah, zone 1 or 2, great for active recovery, great for, just like I say active recovery. And I say that because it's kind of a buzzword, and so I kind of want to almost walk that one back. But it is great for people who are sore from their workouts potentially and don't just want to get more sore. It won't necessarily increase your rate of, as far as the research that I'm aware of right now, it doesn't help reduce delayed onset muscle soreness or help recover from it. Obviously improves your cardiovascular health. Yeah. So overall, totally fine to do this. Do you really need a total day of rest? I'd venture to say that 30 minutes on a bike is basically the same as a total day of rest, because it's just, especially if you're talking zone 1 or zone 2, it's going to be so relaxed that it's not going to do much to incur fatigue. Another note on this, though, is that the issue very typically, and this goes across the board, the issue very frequently for people is not over exercising, it's under recovery. So make sure you are eating enough, make sure you are getting enough high quality sleep, and ensure you are managing your stress. A lot of people, if they wanted to, they could be doing more. I'm a big fan of doing less, try to make the most gains with the least amount of work. But more people could get better gains if they wanted to by doing more, provided that they are doing those things. I mean, I've worked with so many people at this point that the amount of people that are like, oh, I sleep 4 hours, 5 hours a night. It's like, you're crazy.
Yeah.
I know that's just like the situation sometimes,
Right.
and that's just the way it goes. But for some other people, it's like they are watching Netflix until midnight.
Yeah.
Or scrolling on their phone until 1 a.m. and then they're waking up at 5, 6, 7 a.m. for work. And it's like, please prioritize your sleep.
Yeah.
Like, please prioritize your sleep. You gotta. Okay, next question.
Confused on why nutrition facts differ on the same product. For instance, a plain chicken breast for one brand is, for 4 ounces will say 110 calories and 29 grams of protein, and another brand will say 150 calories and 21 grams of protein. Why the discrepancy?
Yeah, so labeling laws. So the FDA in America, sorry if you're listening outside of America, I don't know what your deal is. But also, like, can we migrate? If you're outside of America, are you trying to adopt? If you don't get that joke, just don't hate me. Okay. So labeling laws for the FDA in America allow for 20% margin of error in nutrition facts. And this might sound, I mean, I've had people freak out about this. Like, well, then how do we know if we're in a calorie deficit? I understand that concern. I do understand that concern. When we're talking about calories in versus calories out, we don't have to be perfect. We just need to be consistent.
Mm-hmm.
And 20% margin of error, we don't know if it's low or high, right? And so we're just working off of averages. We're working off of what the data we have is. And we don't need to, if I want to lose weight and my target is 2,400, I don't need to be 2,400 on the money. If I'm 2,398 or 2,405, it's all the same shit. If I'm at 2,500 or 2,300, it's basically all the same shit, because over the course of a week, you got to zoom out. You got to zoom out and look at like a weekly average calorie intake. Anyway, so why would 4 ounces of chicken be different between these two products? Differences in water content, processing methods, source of like which farm it came from. For chicken, a higher calorie content would mean a little bit higher fat or more retained water. Or less water? Less difference in water? Yeah, it'd be less water, because it'd be heavier from like the dry chicken. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
Yeah. Anyway.
You could talk me into either side and I'd be like, that makes sense. I can't conceptually think about that right now.
I mean, we've experienced this with our salmon that we get from Costco.
Oh my God. The Costco salmon. How many calories is it? Someone tell me. How many calories? I don't know.
It is. Yeah. So this was a problem when I was in my last, like not the last fat loss phase, but one fat loss phase. I had been tracking my salmon as 270 calories because that's what it was for one 7-ounce like fillet. 7 ounces was 270 calories. We just keep buying it, keep eating it, whatever. I found out I'm not kidding, a full year later that they had changed to a different salmon like farm or whatever, you know?
Something.
And so it was 440 calories now.
Yeah.
And and somebody I like posted about that on social media, and I was like, this is why like you need to look at your changes in weight and use that to determine. Other people were telling me this is why calories in, calories out doesn't work. It's like, what are you talking about? Like that's not the point I'm trying to make at all. Anyway, they have also moved it back now to 400 calories. So it's gone 270, 440, and now 400.
You have to check every single bag you buy. Because no, we have 3 bags in our freezer right now. 2 of them are 440 and 1 of them is 400.
Yeah.
That doesn't even make sense.
In general, though, just this isn't something worth worrying about.
No.
Like, you know, if you're talking 110 calories or 150 calories, just track it as either one and it's fine. I know that might be insane for like my finance and accounting people out there. They're gonna be like, no, no.
Yeah.
But with calorie tracking, really just work on averages and work with like, if you're 80% accurate, you're going to get 100% of the results.
Yeah.
Like
consistency is going to be a bigger thing than accuracy.
Yeah. This question, I love these. How do I gain muscle / the extreme definition without getting too big? You're not going to get too big. The people who are asking this question, I have no concerns about this person. I don't even know who this person is.
You have to be so intentional.
It's anonymous. And I know this person will not get too big.
Yeah. You have to be so intentional to
how
get
long
really,
I've been trying to get big?
Quote unquote big. And let me just say, everyone has different definitions of what too big is, or like what big would be for them.
Right.
So someone might be thinking like putting on 10 pounds of muscle might be too big for them. But like even 10 pounds of muscle, like you have to be so intentional.
Yeah. 10 pounds of muscle. So muscle growth happens just so slowly. It takes, like, if you really want significant size, it takes, let's just plan on a decade.
Yeah.
Let's plan on 10 years of consistent lifting with a structured lifting program. Like if you want to get significantly bigger, if you want to lean out a little bit, you want to just like, get toned. If I want to get in shape. Like if you want to do that, yeah, you could probably do that. I mean, it depends on what kind of shape you're in right now, but like maybe 6 months, maybe a year, it just depends. But in order to gain significant muscle, you're not going to get too big. You will have plenty of time to ease up before.
Yeah, it's not overnight.
No, it's not like oh my God, I went from 15-pound lateral raises to 20-pound lateral raises, and now my shoulders I can't fit through doors.
Yeah.
Like it's not how that works.
Also, I think that, we spend so much time talking about like muscle growth and continuously getting bigger muscles or you can also just like maintain your current muscle growth. Like if you got to a point where you were happy with your body composition, like.
But also it's not linear. Muscle growth isn't linear. If it was, I'd be a lot more jacked than I am right now. The first 10 pounds of muscle, this is just a random number, but the first 10 pounds of muscle that you gain are going to be so much slower than the next 10 pounds.
Yeah.
And the next 10 pounds after that, good luck. Like good luck. And again, these are made up numbers, but like it's just to say that there are diminishing returns, and those returns start really diminishing.
Yeah. And then the other side of this, I guess you have it on the next slide. The extreme definition. Like
the extreme definition thing is like, if you want definition, you need to have big-ish muscle, not massive.
I mean, you can get
super lean.
Definition.
Yeah, you could get definition with basically no muscle, because we all have muscle. It's just like the size of it that we can increase with lifting. But you need low enough body fat to reveal it. So if you look at like the marathon runners, like those dudes are lean, but their muscles aren't huge. You look at the sprinters, and those dudes are also very lean, but they're jacked. Like they have like big muscle. Like their sprinters are pretty typically jacked. And so it's, that's a change in muscle size without necessarily a change in body fat levels. They have very similar levels of body fat. So really the main thing here is, get lean enough with a calorie deficit. And then, you might need to increase the size of your muscle to have it appear a little bit more, just evidently or, aesthetically or whatever. Next question.
How can I start a body recomp?
So go listen to episode 24.
Yeah.
That we cover, it is how to lose body fat and gain muscle at the same time. We give very specific targets and recommendations, protocols, all that in that episode. But the very short version is body recomposition. Body recomp is losing fat while building muscle. It requires you to lift weights, eat sufficient protein, and eat in either a calorie deficit or maintenance. And you can see it as a range. The further into a calorie deficit you go, the faster fat loss you'll get, but the slower muscle growth. The closer you go to maintenance or a small calorie surplus, you're going to get faster muscle growth. Now, obviously, a calorie surplus, we're going to be gaining body fat, right? So, okay, there are some caveats to that. If somebody is on performance enhancing drugs, they might be able to be in a calorie surplus and not gain body fat because they are gaining muscle at such a rate that their body's not only using the extra calories for muscle growth, but they're also using stored body fat as for muscle growth. And before I say that, it's the energy from stored body fat. It is not like we can't turn body fat into muscle. That's not like a 1-to-1 equation. They're different things. Just wanted to clarify on that. Now, body recomp, yeah, I mean, it just depends. You have to weigh out what's the higher priority for you. Like, do I want slightly faster muscle growth or do I want slightly faster fat loss? Then you make the decision. But yeah, we cover that in depth in episode 24, so I'd go check that one out. All right, next.
Interested in learning how to be in a deficit without tracking food. Is this something you think you could help with in your one-on-one? What would that look like?
Yeah, potentially. So in my one-on-one, I really like people to calorie track, at least because I get data. When I get data, I can make very clear decisions. When I don't get data, I have to we have to work off habits, and sometimes those habits are a little bit harder because they're not as clear cut. You know, when I have very specific, when I have numbers, and again, not 100% accurate, 80% accurate with pretty good consistency, we can. Oh my God, we're doing very well. But yeah, some of these habits, these methods might look like portion control, focusing on high protein, high fiber foods, mindful eating. We'd probably talk about this in your check-ins, in your monthly calls. We'd be trying to dial in the hunger and satiety cues, focusing on that, using slow eating, mindful eating, removing distractions, appropriate food choices for you, to help regulate the intake. So yeah, in my one-on-one coaching, while I do recommend people try calorie tracking for at least a little while to help inform them of how many calories they're taking in, as well as the different sources for that, because I think it's a very good idea just to have a rough idea of where your calories are coming from. It's not essential, and we would work on habit-based strategies. That said, there needs to be a high degree of expectation management here. I frequently say that body composition is like growing a flower. Mm-hmm. If I want to grow a flower, what do? I plant a seed in the ground. Mm-hmm. I try to make sure there's some healthy dirt. I try to water it. I try to provide it with sunlight. And then we hope that a flower grows. Can we force that flower to grow? No, we can't. Now, some people kind of get the heebie-jeebies when I say that. It's like, well, what? I'm not going to make results with you. I'm not going to get results with you. It's like, no, dude, I can force you to grow muscle. We will grow muscle. We will lose body fat, provided that you do the right things. And those right things are lifting weights and taking your sets close to failure. This is the good soil. That is making sure that you are eating less than you expend, right? That is the water and the sunlight. If we do those two things, a flower's probably going to grow. I mean, not probably, it will grow. It's not like people aren't broken, So yeah, like growing a flower, all this to say, we need to focus on the inputs, right? And if we are doing the inputs consistently, then yeah, sure, it'll happen. But is it going to happen as accurately and as consistently and as linearly as it would with calorie tracking? Depends on the person,
right?
Because we don't have the data. So maybe this person just thrives with the habit-based stuff, and maybe we find out that, hey, I'm kind of shaky on the habits, or I'm eating cheesecake every night, or it's just, I'm eating 6 slices of pizza on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Jane from accounting brings in cupcakes every Thursday, so I eat 4 of those. It's like, habits are kind of going out the window now. So yeah, is it possible? Yes. And if you have any questions, just shoot me an email or a DM or something. I don't know. Do you have anything to add on that? You know my program. You helped me build it.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like we have provided a lot of resources, especially because we acknowledge that most people are not going to be calorie tracking for the rest of their lives.
Yep.
Our goal, well, your goal as the
Our
coach,
goal. No, our
but
goal.
our goal and the way that we
Yeah.
set up a lot of the information is that eventually you will be doing this on your own. And if you wanted to continue losing weight or maintaining weight, that you would have the strategies and tools to do that without necessarily calorie tracking. While me and you calorie track fairly often, you daily, me, I go through phases. Um, it's not realistic for everyone for the rest of their lives. Like that's kind of
For anybody.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody should be calorie tracking for the rest of their lives.
Right. That's just not realistic.
No, we don't want to live with this.
So we do provide those strategies and those, insights and tools, regardless of if you plan on calorie tracking or not. So I do think that information is available. But like you said, there's going to be a lot more discussion around habits. Not that that conversation isn't existing with people who calorie track. It's just,
Just
like
higher,
you said,
higher, focus on that.
But I do definitely think, not everyone calorie tracks, and people do fluctuate their weight both up and down.
Yep.
So
yeah. So I think it's very reasonable. And if you're ever curious, just hop on a call. I mean, the last 5 people I've hopped on a call with, I think 3 signed on, but 2, I recommended them to a different program.
Yeah.
Just what day is it? Today's Saturday. So Thursday.
Yep.
Thursday, I hopped on a call with a woman. I asked her some questions. We got to know each other. And as I was going through the questions, I said, hey, do you struggle with this, this, this? And she's like, yeah, those are some struggles. So it was a relationship with food specifically. And it was, what I told her is, and this is kind of a side tangent, but what I told her is when her and I are working together, improving your relationship with food will be a byproduct of what we do. It is not the main focus. And I don't mind that being a thing because my goal is to improve people's body composition, their education, their knowledge, things like that, without necessarily working on directly. I'm not a therapist. My background is not emotional eating or binge eating. What episode is Michelle Yates on? I think 15 or something like that. Anyways, I recommended her to Michelle Yates' program because this woman had so it is episode 15.
Yes.
Yeah. This woman had a severely troubling relationship with food. Okay. It was a massive red flag for me. And what I was concerned about is that focusing on body composition and weight change were not in her best interest at this time. And that she should try to seek professional help with who I frequently recommend for this type of thing, with the emotional eating, with the binge eating, with Michelle Yates and her team. And then if she gets to the other side of that, then great, then we can work together. But yeah, my job, I don't know, it's to educate, to help people improve their body composition, and like you said, to create change in a way that helps them make sure that it's sustainable for them in the long run. Some of the best compliments that I get are when David said, I asked him, is this sustainable? He said, for life, yes. He had worked with a bodybuilding coach in the past, and he said there was no way. He said every time I went into the gym or started tracking my nutrition, I felt like there was no way it would be sustainable because they were such strict protocols that he was following. So he wrote down that coach's protocols, and it was way too intense. And now, when I ask him, is it sustainable? Yes, for life. It's excellent, or Jordan, who said this was very transformative. Laura, who says you're the best coach I've ever had. It's I think the reason this isn't supposed to be a glazing factory and I'm the donut. But I am both the donut and the glaze machine. But it's just to say that I don't know. We built a good program and I'm proud of it. All right, let's move on.
Last question. Gym isn't an option. I have the adjustable weights that go up to 52.2. I think that's supposed to be 52 and a half.
Yeah, probably.
Each. What do I do when I need to lift heavier? Should I do more reps to build?
Yeah, so our body doesn't really know what implements we're using. It just knows force. It only knows tension, right? And so when we think about what grows muscle, it's taking sets close to failure. And the outcome of that is typically progressive overload. People get this backwards, in my opinion. Some people say you need progressive overload in order to grow muscle. I think that's ridiculous because on a short term, like long term, true. Long term, true. Short term, if I do 100 pounds for 6 reps, this week for a bench press or something like that, right? And then I do 100 pounds for 6 reps next week. Does that mean I didn't grow muscle? That would be. I'm going to hold back my words because I'm. That's really dumb. That is turbo dumb to think that. I mean, that's turbo dumb. So, anyways, progressive overload, in my opinion, is an outcome rather than a process that you try to abide by. When we're talking about the short term, when we're talking about the long term, if I stay at 100 pounds for 6, despite being like, I've progressed past that, and 100 pounds for 6 now is now very, very easy, and I'm still doing 100 pounds for 6. Is that going to be very stimulative for muscle growth? No, absolutely not.
Right.
Okay, so we need to be taking our sets close to failure, and yeah, progressive overload should be the outcome. We should be increasing in weight or reps or different things like that to make sure that we are because if that's not happening, then something needs to change. We need to increase our volume. We need to increase our proximity to failure, get closer to failure. Maybe we need to change our program. Maybe we change our exercise selection. Maybe we need to change our recovery practices. Like, are we eating enough? Are we sleeping enough? Are we managing our stress? There's a lot of things that we need to be focusing on there. Anyway, the question is actually very simple. What do you need to do when you need to lift heavier? Yeah, you can increase reps. You could change your tempo. I personally don't love working a lot with tempo because we have research that shows anywhere with rep speeds within the 2 to 8 second range is similar for muscle growth. So whether we have a 3-second eccentric or a 1-second eccentric, it doesn't really matter as long as we are controlling the eccentric. And the concentric, in my opinion, should be performed as quickly as possible, because when we see an involuntary slowdown in the concentric rep speed, then we know that we are approaching failure. So if every time I'm doing a concentric rep, like when I'm curling the weight up, for example, with a bicep curl, if I'm doing that intentionally slow, how do I know when that rep speed is involuntarily slowing down? Mm-hmm. I don't, because I've been voluntarily slowing it down. So anyway, you can still, maybe you could do unilateral movements like split squats instead of squats. Maybe you could increase the range of motion if you're not already working through a full range of motion. And maybe you could just add individual dumbbells for heavier weights, instead of getting like another adjustable set that goes up to like 70, for example. Maybe get a pair of 70s, or maybe invest in a cable machine, or maybe invest in a barbell or something like that. And yeah, you can just do more reps, like I said. So the Schoenfeld study, I posted this same reel twice. I repost things that go viral sometimes. And this one went very viral. And the second time I posted it, it was the same shitstorm as the first time. And it was it was like a 2-person reel where I'm like, hey, how many reps should I be doing? And the other version of me is like, doesn't really matter. And he said, so 8 or 12. And the other version of me is like, the coach version of me is like, anywhere in the 5 to 30 rep range is going to be has been shown to be similar for muscle growth. I show this meta-analysis by Schoenfeld from 2017, and still people are like, 12 reps is not better than 6 reps, or 6 reps is better than 12 reps. And no way you can grow muscle at 25 reps. Okay, well, that's not what the research shows. If proximity to failure is similar, oh my God, it's like insane. It's like talking to a wall sometimes with Instagram commenters, because they don't want to engage with like actual dialect. They don't want to actually go look at the study, even the abstract. Like, just read the abstract. It'll take you 40 seconds. And I know like other science communicators might be saying like, please don't tell them to read the abstract. Which, okay, fair.
Yeah.
Fair. But because like we should be reading more than the abstract is like the kind of the thing there. But reading research is hard, and I understand that. but I just think that like a degree of science literacy is really important. And if we could just expose people to what research actually looks like,
Yeah.
then we are getting a little bit further in this time when so many people are anti-science, which is mind-boggling and stupid and brain dead. And there are not enough negative words to say how angry I feel that the world is going, not the world, America is going anti-science. It's saddening. It is baffling. It is shameful.
Yeah.
So on and so forth. You know, there's not enough things that I can say about it. That it's just anyway. Anyway, the Schoenfeld 2017 study. The Schoenfeld 2017 study. It was they looked at a bunch of studies that did a bunch of rep ranges, and they saw equal muscle growth in the 5 to 30 rep range as long as proximity to failure is similar. So if you're taking 5 reps to 1 RIR or 25 reps to 1 RIR, rep in reserve, or RPE 9 if you work with a rating of perceived exertion, it's going to be relatively similar. So practically, and I always write this in the caption of that post, practically probably do like 5 to 12, 6 to 12 reps for most of your work because it's very time efficient. However, there are situations where higher reps may be warranted. Like if you've maxed out your weight, and am I going to be the dumbass who's like, you shouldn't do more than 12 reps, bro? You shouldn't. You shouldn't. No, do 13, do 14, do 15, go up, you know? Eventually, you're going to get to 25, 30 reps, and you're going to be like, dude, this sucks. Each set is taking like 3 minutes. Not literally, but it does take, you know, a significant longer amount of time. There's also research that suggests that we get worse at rating our perceived failure with higher reps because they are more uncomfortable. You know, you kind of get that burny feeling. So, you know, when you're at 25 reps, you don't have a team of researchers yelling at you like one more, you know? You're alone in your garage, in the gym, in your basement, wherever. And is it very likely that you're constantly pushing to 1 RIR? I've seen people train.
Mm-hmm.
It's not likely.
Yeah.
You know? And so this isn't a knock on you or anybody else. It's just to say that like there are practical reasons for staying in the 6 to 12 rep range. Oh, but yeah, other reasons besides just like ran out of weight and you need to increase your reps, you know, because you don't have any heavier weights. If you have like joint issues, you know, and like 6 reps of lateral raises feels like your fucking shoulders are going to fall off, then yeah, 12, 13, 14, 15 reps, totally reasonable. There also may be different hypertrophic or muscle growth benefits to different rep ranges. That's not 100% solid yet, so that's why I'm kind of like beating around the bush here. But occasionally throwing in some higher rep stuff might be beneficial in a different way for muscle growth. But again, this is not super solid yet, and so just take that with a grain of salt. All right, anything else that you want to add on here?
I don't think so.
Add on to this episode or anything like that?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. Awesome. Well, this has been a really good episode. You know what? I actually had the timestamps at the bottom, so I could have read those out at the beginning, but that's okay because that's fine. All right. This has been a great episode. I hope you didn't hate my rants. If I lost any of you, I'm sorry. I hope you'll stick around despite me being pro-science. Can't believe I have to say that. And I hope you have a very, very good day. All right. Take care.